thank you for having me. And we're still looking at how overwhelm affects little ones, which is near and dear to my heart. For years, I you know what, I think even going back to when I was first starting 20 years ago, maybe more than that. I had always wanted to run toward working with kids, working with youth. I did a lot of youth camps. I still do a lot of youth camps. I train youth quite a bit and kids quite a bit. I work with kids with schools at home. Up until COVID season, I was going into the schools, playing alligator hunter, and Carminda, my wifey, would do kids yoga with the young people. And so I really wanted to take a few sessions talking about what it looks like with kids. And today we'll finish up with kids today, and then we'll do adolescents. And we're gonna spend a pretty good chunk of time discussing adolescence because tools change. I've had a lot of conversations with in high schools, just sitting in libraries and lunchrooms and Indian ed rooms with Native kids, and learned so much. I just learned today that a patient of mine today gave me so much insight of how trauma behaves and what it affects things, how it affects things socially. And I'll share this with you so I don't forget it when we get to adolescent stuff. I shared with you last time, she came in asking about the diagnosis of ADHD. And I think people say a lot about getting diagnosed with ADHD because they hear so much about it. You can't turn a TV on or be on Instagram or Facebook without having a commercial, an ad for ADHD. So it's just part of just the lexicon of how people understand the world. Well, since I'm having trouble reading this paragraph, this sentence, I must have ADHD. I can't sit still right now, I must have ADHD. And so it becomes the lowest hanging fruit. And you know what, honestly, it's pretty low hanging fruit diagnosis too, because it's really, you can send home a Connors, which you guys have probably done. You can send home a Connors, which is home or parent observation of the child. And so it's, if the parent has an agenda and want their child on medication, then of course they're gonna, it's very obvious survey. So yes, 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 and then my child has ADHD. And for me, I wanted to wait, and I always do. I wanted to wait and see what else was going on. And I think I shared with you last time, there's always, invariably, there's a smoking gun. There's something that creates this hypervigilance. And really ADHD is just hypervigilance. It's just their body perpetually being braced for impact, getting ready for the next thing, the other shoe to drop. And so it looks like this. And that just doesn't fall out of the sky. I'm curious what's going on there. And so this young lady, she came with saying I had like ADHD diagnosis. And then we found out there was a mother had chronic anxiety. Her and her father were fighting constantly. There was a divorce, there was a car accident, there was a sexual molestation, which she just backed into later in the session. She said, and I was sexually molested, because I had asked specifically. Was because I just wasn't getting, for what she was presenting, it was more than ADHD. It was a combination. It looked like PTSD. And I thought, those don't fit together, what she was saying and her level of activation. So I asked about if there was any kind of abuses, and she said that she was sexually assaulted. And so today I find out that she said, I changed. She said, I changed how I look. I changed how I think. I changed how I understand the world. And here's what I thought was really fascinating is it's pretty common in this generation of, I'll say, sixth grade and up through high school to want a diagnosis, which blows my mind. Do you remember when we were younger? I mean, there was no diagnosing. There's nothing like this. Now it's almost an ownership of it, a tag that, oh, I have ADHD, or I have anxiety, or I'm depressed. There's seeking of diagnoses, which this has probably been for the past, I've learned more and more about this in probably the past 7-8 years, that there's the seeking of these diagnoses and the social acceptability of it. I mean, there's probably a lot of things that affect it. Also the allopathic, how we throw medications at diagnoses now. So she was saying that she changed, she got darker, she didn't know how to feel. Does that sound familiar to our work? This is a conversation we had today. I don't know how to feel. And I said, tell me about that. And she said, I will do something just so I feel something, which is common with PTSD. Very dangerous behaviors. Soldiers coming back from military will do very dangerous behaviors just so they can feel something other than anger or fear. She wants to feel other things, so she does more dangerous behaviors. And she said that, and I asked specifically, and I've talked with you guys about, have this question be part of your toolbox. I asked her specifically, do you have numb spots on your body? And she said, yeah, all over the place. Then she said, I recently got a tattoo. And she said, I couldn't feel at all what they were doing when they were giving me a tattoo. There was no pain. I couldn't even feel the pressure on my skin. So she was saying all the symptoms of how the brain's behaving during trauma. Now, I'll circle back to this. That's becoming also an American phrase. I'll circle back to this because this is going to feed our information about suicidality. But I wanted to share that before I forgot it, for it was really the main reason. But we'll come back to that. So don't let me forget that, Annie, that I want to come back to that because I want to finish looking at school-age children, preschool and school-age children. So remember we talked about infants crying, if there was prenatal trauma, if there was epigenetic things going on from prenatal or early life distress. So they're the smaller head circumference, lower IQ, smaller limbs, they're inconsolable, things like that. So that was as they were young. As they start to get to school age, it's the same. We can see some of the same symptoms as adults. The four horsemen: hypervigilance, constriction, numbing, dissociation. We can see the same symptoms. It's just that they're in the school system now, and so it becomes more recognizable. Let's pause there for a second. When they're